I'm a little sick, so sorry if I sound a little stuffed up. I'm sure this coffee will not help. But it is great. Anyway, I was going to stop doing these improvisational reviews like this, but then somebody complimented one of my one of my older comic reviews. I was just thinking, like, well, if I'm gonna keep reviewing comics, I can review them like this. But I've been reading a lot of comics, and I'm like way far ahead, and I don't want to like go back and start over again. So I'm like, yeah, all right. So I'm going to review all of them essentially, or at least talk about each one, and kind of maybe talk about how I feel about reading this many comics from throughout the Marvel universe, um, and go through this list. What I did was I went to comicbookreadingorders.com. Maybe I'll put that on the screen, but maybe it might be there. And you want to go, well, if you want to follow along with me, you want to go to comicbookreadingorders.com. I almost said all one word. And remember to put the HTTP at the beginning. Yeah. And then you want to go to the Marvel Master Reading Order Part 1. And I read all of these ish. I'll explain that in a minute. So the first thing on the list is Thor Son of Asgard, which I think I only read the first issue of and then made a review for. But the whole series I think is pretty good. It's worth a read. It's a good start to this. It's a mediocre start to this actually, because I feel it's good if you're really into Thor, or like the Thor universe or Thor section of the Marvel universe, you might say, Asgard and all that, which is really important in phase 1 through 3 of the Marvel movies, at least. But that's actually, even though it's like 12 issues, it's actually 3 different storylines. The first 6 issues is decent, but it's really slow to start. The first like 2 or 3 issues I was like, but the last 3 or 2 issues I was kind of like, yay, great. I don't know. The second series I hardly even remember. I remember it was mostly about Lady Sif, and I really like Lady Sif in the comics. In the movie she's better, and she has no character development in the movies at all, but like there's like a couple episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where she shows up randomly, and I think she's better in those because they actually give her some character development. I mean, in the movies she's just there, and I think she dies randomly. I don't even remember. Oh, and then the last 3 issues are great, and the best part of the whole bit, I think, the whole series of Thor: Son of Asgard. The last 3 issues are amazing. I won't even talk about them. I'll just say, just read those 3. Like, skip the rest if you want. If you like Thor, I'd say read it all. Go ahead. Otherwise, if you're like starting this list or something, I'd say like, yeah, just skip the last 3 issues of Thor: Son of Asgard, 10, 11, and 12. Then after that is Origin 1 and 2. Origin is 6 issues. Origin 2 is 5 issues, and this is the origin of Wolverine. It was originally called Wolverine Origin, but then they just changed it to just Origin after that horrible movie came out. They tainted the name Wolverine Origin. Okay, this might be a little controversial. I don't know. Who cares? But the first Origin, I didn't like, actually. For the most part, I felt it was like really slow. The plot was like hard. There was hardly any plot. It was trying to be like character focused, but it felt like a story that really shouldn't have been character focused. But it was also like all characters without plot, So the characters just meander around until something happens at random, pretty much, is how it felt to me. There were some things that were pretty good. I remember there was like a kind of a twist in it. I guess spoilers, but there was kind of a twist in it where it's like kind of setting it up. So there's kind of this bully kid and his dad. And the bully kid's name is Logan, and his dad looks just like Wolverine, pretty much. And then there's also the sickly kid who lives in a mansion and is taken care of all the time by servants and shit because he's sick. And then it turns out the sick kid is Wolverine, because he's just sick at that point because he doesn't have his powers yet. And then they gestate in this horrible, this really horrible house invasion gone wrong. But Origin 2 is great. And I would say, like, again, if you're going through this list, you'd skip the first Origin, but definitely read Origin 2 because it's great. Has a really good plot. There's a mystery in it that's like really good. It has some twists and turns that again are really good. It's all really good. It's Origin 2, where it's at. Captain America 255. Oh, that was like the origin of Captain America or something like that, just written, or maybe that's later. I don't know. I don't remember that one. Marvels, which it jumps all over the place with Marvels on this list. But Marvels is a really good series. It's just a short series, and you can read it by itself. And it does jump around because it's all about this one guy's life in the Marvel universe, and he's just a photojournalist, which I think is sorry, I'm a little sick, like I said, but he's just a photojournalist who in New York who's like seen the growth of superheroes, and like at first he's like really scared of superheroes, but then I think that issue 2, it's only like 5 issues, I think. There's also an issue 0, so maybe it's 6 issues then. But I think it's issue 2 or 3 that has the X-Men and everyone, or like the mutants and whatever, and like in that he kind of houses a mutant for a bit, kind of like the Jews in Hitler Germany, like some people will house them, like Anne Frank. Or Helen Keller. Wait. Diary of Helen Keller. That doesn't sound right. And then he kind of understands them after that. It's really good. I'd just say read it. Even if you're not going through this list, just find Marvels and read it. Then there was a Captain America and Bucky. Oh, that was pretty good. That was kind of their, like, it's number 620 to 624. But that's kind of like an odd-on-the-nose joke. Kind of. But Captain America and Bucky was pretty good. It's a kind of an on-the-nose joke because Captain America, I don't think it's ever been numbered that high, or any comics ever get numbered that high to 620 and 624, and it's also a prequel, so that's like double funny, I guess. Double the fun. And it was okay. I remember liking the art style, I think maybe more than the story, but it's like really action packed, and that like the artistry really helps with that stuff. I don't really remember what happens in it. The plot wasn't like particularly strong from what I remember, but I think it covers like Bucky dying and stuff. But I don't actually remember. I mean, that might happen later. Captain America Namor is the next one on this list. It's just a single issue. I couldn't find that, so I didn't read it. Sorry. X-Men Magneto Testament is amazing, but it's also something that like I wouldn't recommend to anyone because it's really depressing, because it's all about it's about Magneto's time during the Holocaust, and it's mostly just a Holocaust story, is what I would call it. It's just like Schindler's List, pretty much. So if you like Schindler's List, and it's sad, it's like Schindler's List, it's sad and depressing, and it's just kind of makes you down. I don't know, there's a word I'm looking for, but it makes you down, makes you feel down just knowing that happened, But it's a really good story. It's very well written. It's very true to life, even though Magneto's in it. But I don't even remember if I don't remember if his powers gestate during it or not. He might not even have powers. It's basically just a Holocaust story, like I said. But it's really good. But know what you're in for before reading it, really. Next is Fury Peacemaker, which I really liked, but it's written by Garth Ennis, who wrote The Boys and Preacher and like a bunch of comics that are just disgusting. And this one's not too bad. It's Fury during World War II, Nick Fury. Because in his origin stories, he was always like a war veteran, originally from origin, or in the comics he was war veteran from World War II. I don't think that's in the movies anymore, or like really even in his origins anymore, because everything has to keep being updated. And that one's really good. It's meant more for adults. It was part of the Universe Max series, and that was Marvel Max or something like that, and but like all the Max stuff is like Marvel but made for adults, pretty much. And that's really good. If you like war movies, especially World War II movies. I'd highly recommend it. It's like really good. If you don't like war movies, I probably wouldn't recommend it though. Actually, it kind of reminded me of like Apocalypse Now at different points. Just a couple of like plot things. If you're familiar with the movie and you read those, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, I see it. Next one is Submarine of the Depths, which is great. And it's another one you can just read by itself, and be done with it, and like, never read another comic, type of thing. It doesn't it doesn't continue anything. It doesn't lead to anywhere, as far as I know. But what that is it's about a submarine crew, I think, right before or right after World War II. I can't remember. Must be after, because this is like going in order, like chronologically. It doesn't cover. It's just like the best stories of like everything. It's not like here's every single comic you have to read and that's ever been written. It's like, no, it's just like a beeline, because it's the first part and it's 1,000 comics. But anyway, Nightmare of the Depths. That's amazing. Everyone should read it. It's like a horror movie in a submarine, except the monster is Namor the Submariner. Sorry, I was calling it submarine. I've always done that. Submariner. It's Submariner. Namor the Submariner is the monster that's trying to kill everyone on the submarine. It's great though. I loved it. That should be a movie, I think. But it'd be like a standalone movie that's not a part of the Marvel Universe or something. But that would be cool. Logan Path of the Warlords, single issue. I read it, but I don't remember it. I can't remember a single thing about it. Just moving on. Strange Tales, number 115. That's the origin of Doctor Strange. That one's pretty good. It's a 60s comic, and I think I'll get to that in a bit. I'll talk about it, because there's it's like all these things that were written like long after the start of the Marvel Universe, but come before chronologically. They're like origin stories, like Origins, right? Doctor Strange season 1. I'll talk about that stuff when I get to the 60s. Mystic Arcana, same with, yeah. Or maybe I will. Moving on. Ororo Before the Storm. That one's great. Or no, that one's not as good as, I think, Storm Volume 2. It's just Volume 2, but it's only like 8 issues, I think. Ororo Before the Storm is okay. It's pretty good. It's about her during, I think, right before or while she's gaining her powers. It starts right before, but I think she gains them as it goes. I mean, and it's while she's a thief in Africa. And she's trained to be a thief from some guy training her to be a thief with a bunch of other kids. And she's really young, too. It's really good. I would recommend it. Yeah, if you like Storm as much as I do, I really like Storm. She's top 3 X-Men, for sure. Right up there with Nightcrawler and, I don't know, top 2 X-Men. Storm and Nightcrawler. I feel like they're best to be a third. I like Wolverine a lot, but not as much as I used to. As a kid, he was like definitely my favorite from the 90s TV show. But as I got older, I think I just kind of, I don't know. He's still cool. Just not as cool as not as much as I used to like him. It's just because he's not very bright. Sometimes. He can be really dumb sometimes. So, and it's always kind of, I mean, it's not like he's a complex character and I like that about him, but like, it feels like for someone as old as he is, he's not particularly wise. He doesn't learn from his mistakes more often than not. Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. That was okay. It's Frank Miller, and all Frank Miller Daredevil is amazing for the most part. I haven't read them all, and I know that like Frank Miller goes through phases, I think. But this was good, but it's like if you've seen the Netflix Daredevil show, I would say that you don't have to read this. But the next thing, Daredevil Battlin Jack Murdock, is all just about his dad before the fight, and it does this whole thing before the fight that he decides to win, and then the mob kills him. Spoilers if you didn't know that. That's part of his origin story. It's like something everyone knows about Daredevil. I mean, because how can you be a superhero if your parents are dead? That seems to be the Marvel creed anyway. But that one's really good. I would recommend that one. I'd say you don't have to read it. It doesn't really like add much to the story, but it's really well written, and it does add a little depth to his dad's character. Okay, then it says only read the Doctor Strange portion of Strange Tales 110 to 128. Okay, this was a big section of the 60s comics, or where they kind of start. I'll just skip that again because there's still a few things to cover. Next, Punisher Born. This was also part of that Universe Max that the Fury thing was from, and I think it was also written by Garth Ennis. I'm not sure about that, but I'd recommend this one more. This is about Punishers. I don't know why they're both war stories, Universe Max, but this is Punisher and maybe Garth Ennis both, but like this is Punisher in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and it's really good. Especially if you like the Punisher. If you don't like the Punisher, or you don't like war movies, if you don't like the Punisher and you don't like war movies, don't read it. But if you like either of those, I'd recommend it. It's really good. I'm not even gonna say much more about it, just because I really liked it a lot. Logo Shadow Society single issue. I think I couldn't find that issue either. I just don't remember it. And then Marvel Comics Presents, and that's number 72 to number 84. It's all the Weapon X stuff. That stuff is amazing. You should hunt that down or something, and go to your library or whatever. Just find it. Marvel Comics Presents the Weapon X stuff, and you might be able to get it in like a graphic novel just by itself. It's really good. If you like Wolverine too, even if you've had a falling out with him like I have, but like it's amazing. If you like his, especially because, and I've always kind of liked the Weapon X stuff. I think maybe a little more than the Origin stuff, just because like before that he doesn't remember anything before that. So like this is kind of the start of his story, is Weapon X, and then onward, because everything else is just amnesia, and I don't think he ever remembered, because you know what happens to him because of Days of Future Past. I think, I don't know about the comic books. Actually, I haven't gotten that far yet. Wolverine Hunger, don't remember that one. I think I read that one. Oh, I think that's the one that like doesn't have any words in it. That one's really, it's all artwork and just shows like because what happens to him after he gets out of the Weapon X facility, and he's just basically a wild animal. I don't think there's any words in it. Maybe there's some at the end, or like it starts out with like no words, just artwork. It's really good. That one's really good. Yeah, I do remember that one. Angel Revelation. That's a 5-issue. It's about his time in the Academy. I've never liked Warren Worthington, or I forget his name. It's something like that. But I never liked Angel that much. He's always just kind of seemed like a pompous rich kid to me, and he still is in this. But the story, like the first like couple issues, I was just like, I don't care because I don't like this character, and that's just me. That's my fault, I know. But sorry. So sometimes I get brain farts. What was I even saying? Oh, but the storyline becomes really good in this one. That's the thing that was kind of surprising to me. It just becomes like a lot better. Even though I still don't like the character that much, it does something that's really cool, and I'd recommend the read, even if the couple issues might be a little slow, especially if you don't like Angel that much. He's okay. I'm not like totally against the guy, but he's not my favorite X-Men. Which I've mentioned already, is Storm and Nightcrawler. Anyway, Storm Volume 2 is great, and that's about Storm and her early romance, like the first time that she met Black Panther and their early romance. And it's really good because it's very realistic. It's actually I think it's definitely more for adults too, because I think there's like some terrorists who like invaded town during it, but it's mostly about their romance, which I think is really cool, and it really showcases how the characters are different from each other, and why they still like love each other in the end. It's really good, especially like even though it's a romantic story, I'd still probably recommend it to anyone who likes the characters. It's not like a chick flick or something. Do they even make chick flicks anymore? Oh god, is it sexist for me to say chick flicks anymore? Fuck. Anyway, Fantastic Four season 1. Yeah, after this we get to the big giant wall of 60s comics. And I just want to kind of talk about that. Because if you're reading through these and you also get to the 60s comics, I would say skip them. For the most part, at least. I would say at least skip to like 1965. Because things get a lot more serialized then. Before that, it's really episodic and it's really convoluted too. Like, okay, here's every single comic up to about 1965 of every one of these. Acted out, pantomimed. Let's see. Wow, I'm Peter Parker, or the Human Torch, or whoever. Wow, I'm some generic superhero doing my generic thing before something happens. Whoa, that thing happened. Better get out there and stop this one-shot villain that will probably come back next week. Okay, now I'm being too cynical, but like, oh, maybe I'll beat him in a normal way. Oh no, he defeated me in that way. Well, I get out of this? This seems like an impossible situation. Well, let me just pull something right out of my ass, and look, it did it, and now I won, and everything's back to normal, and it can be the exact same next month, you know, and that's every 60s comic up to about 1965, and then it gets really good. Actually, it's like really kind of just sudden, actually, and strange, just in that like everything's like it's like a big sloggy mess of crap. That like maybe one issue here and there might stand out, but like for the most part, because it's so episodic, it's just like who cares? It's just like everything's the same by the end of this every time. But then Galactus shows up in the Fantastic Four, and if you only read like one thing from the 60s comics, I'd say find that. I think it's like starts with issue like 35 maybe or something like that. It's got like Silver Surfer showing up, and then Galactus, and they have to fight Galactus, and I don't know, it's really good. That and like everything after, once it gets serialized, once each series gets serialized like that, it gets pretty good. And here's the thing too. Okay, a couple of things actually. Like the 60s comics, I would say you don't have to read any, not even the Galactus thing I just mentioned. Just skip them all. If you're going through this list, because they're like every comic, every single one is a product of its own time, and like the things they mention and everything, it's like a very different style than what you see even like in the 70s or like even in 1965, like the early 60 comics, kind of crap. 65, it gets a bit better because everything gets serialized, but it's still mostly crap. And here's the other thing I don't like about it. Okay, in each panel of every comic, up until maybe the late 60s, there's people in the comic. There's a drawing that shows you what's going on. There's a word bubble of the person saying what's going on, and there's a narration box that's also saying what's going on. These are three things in each panel that's all saying the same thing. The artwork, the word bubble, and the narration box, But, I mean, like, I guess it started out being, like, just for kids, basically, or that's how they saw it, until, I guess, later on they saw, like, oh, actually, college-age students are reading a lot of comics, and that's, I think, maybe when they started getting more serialized and a lot more grown up, a lot of the storylines. Again, they're all products of their own time, and, like, maybe you should, like, look through it and be like, well, who's reading comics in each era, early 60s, little kids, maybe skip that stuff. Mid 60s, college age students, maybe that stuff's better type of thing. I don't know, but like, that's just my theory. But instead of reading these 60s comics, they have these season ones, like there's Ant-Man season 1, Avengers Origins. Oh, there's also Origins. There's seasons ones. There's also Origins. okay, or Avengers Origins, which are all about just the people who are in the Avengers, and outside of that, there's the season ones, and these are all modern retellings of those old storylines. So I would say just read those instead, because they are very similar. They're not. I mean, obviously they're not the same at all because like the '60s comics were really convoluted to the point that it's just a jumbled mess, every one of them. Up to the mid '60s. Not all '60s comics, just the really early ones. But you should read these because they're really well written for the most part. I mean, there's some, but even like the ones that aren't that well written are better than those '60s comics, So I would say read the season ones and the Avengers Origins. Like look up what they all are and just read those instead, because a lot of these aren't very good. Let's see. I'll just go like outside of that. I'll just like kind of skim through these. I mentioned the Fantastic Four stuff I liked, and mid '60s I would still say like really good, or it gets a lot better. Like especially if you like start reading like some of those early '60s comics, and you're like, I don't want to read any of these. Like maybe skip to the mid '60s before giving up entirely, just to see how it's different. And you might enjoy it a bit more, even though it's still kind of convoluted and meant more for children, I think, than than college age students yet. All right. I saw something I wanted to mention. Oh, there's another one. Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I guess that's their season one, because it says modern retelling of the first Avengers story, and it's like, yeah, just read those. Oh, Captain America: Man Out of Time. That's the other one. That was really good. I like that one a lot. Just hunt it down and just read it. I mean, especially if you like Captain America. This one's more like he feels more like the Captain America you see in the movies, actually, than in the earlier comics and stuff. And maybe he just is like that, and I just never really read Captain America comics. I just really like him in the movies. But Captain America: Man Out of Time. I do recommend that one, especially if you like Captain America. Even if you don't, the art style is really good. Like it really stands out at how good it is. Actually, it's just its own style. It does its own thing, kind of. So it's it's really good. And it's about him. It's about him getting frozen. It starts with him getting frozen, and then it goes to him out of time. Coming back into the world. It's like the last 10 minutes of the first Captain America movie where he comes out, he's like, oh, what happened? It's like, you've been frozen for 50, 60 years or whatever. It'd be like if that was its own movie, if they had stretched that into its own movie, kind of. But it's really good. It's different. It's not like your typical, it's more like Submariner the Depths, I mean, in that it's not a typical storyline like that. It's not a typical superhero storyline, it's not a horror movie like that. That one is a horror graphic novel. I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it's still horror, right? Iron Man Enter the Mandarin. I would pass. I didn't like it. That's all I'm gonna say, because I was like, because that was a more modern one, but it was still like, it just wasn't well written. It's like 6 issues. I felt it could have been told in like 3 issues. So there's a lot of, it feels like kind of stretched out, and also the story isn't that good, just in general. Unless you like really, really into Iron Man or the Mandarin, or and even then, I'd say like there's better stories. That might be it, because there's a lot of '60s comics here, and I read a lot of them, but I started kind of skipping. Like if I started a comic after a while, because there's so many comics, I would just start skimming through, or skipping ones altogether if I didn't like where the story was going, or if I just felt it was too boring or whatever. Just because like they're really convoluted and bad. A lot of them. It's like when comics from the '60s, when they're good, they're really good, but when they're bad, they're just awful. And it's really hard to find. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack. It feels like, because there's way more bad than good from the '60s era. especially from today's standards. I'm sure if you were reading them in that time period, you might still enjoy them. But like if you've read any modern comics, then try to read a '60s comics, you're just gonna be like, what the fuck is this? Because it's a really different style. Great artwork though. If you just want to like skim through some of these '60s, just to be like, yeah, this is awesome artwork, and not read anything, you'd probably still get basically the same storyline, just making it up basically. Probably just figure it out. Oh, there's also Mythos. That one was good, pretty good too. Mythos X-Men, #1. And X-Men Origins, also. Read those instead of reading the original X-Men. Actually, I would actually kind of recommend the original X-Men over like the original Fantastic Four and stuff. Just like if you're just like comparing like the first 10 issues or something. I think maybe that's because X-Men came out a little later than the rest, so maybe they had already figured out how to do their own style. I also like the X-Men more than most other superheroes, so that's just me. I'd probably just say that if you like the Fantastic Four and want to read all the Fantastic Four, just do it. Don't listen to me. Or whatever, Want to read every Doctor Strange or something. Oh yeah. Oh, there's a couple things I forgot about. X-Men First Class. There's like they sell these in like because they're all separated now, or they're all like in 4 different volumes now, because each one's like a year basically of high school. They're really good. I would recommend all of them. They are great. They're really fun. Okay, like if you're looking for like more serious stuff, like maybe go for like Magneto Testament if you can handle it, or Submarine of the Depths, or Marvels. Actually, I'd say go with Marvels. That's all you need. But if you were looking for something more fun and very superhero-y, definitely go X-Men First Class, because it's great. Especially if you're looking for that type of entertainment, I guess. Like really, really action-packed. Got a lot of character development too. It's way better than the original X-Men. I'd say read this instead of the original X-Men comics. Let's read X-Men First Class. It's really good. It's nothing like the movie too. The movie's good too, but it's like totally different, just name only type of thing. But yeah, I'd say read through all the X-Men First Class because it's great. Is that it? So lots and lots of '60s comics. Some of it's really good. Like I said, I would actually really recommend the later like 1960. It doesn't have a year here, so I'm not sure when. But like the Strange Tales from like Doctor Strange, late '60s, and Avengers. Actually, I might recommend all of if you want to read like just one thing to get you through the '60s. If you want to read '60s comics, I'd recommend Avengers. Actually, just it's. I think Avengers actually is more good than bad most of the time. Unlike the other ones, which is kind of like I said, kind of like searching through a needle in a haystack. Like might be like, well, X-Men #5 is amazing, but then everything else 1 through 10 is just crap or something. I don't know. I'm just saying numbers; they don't mean anything. But the Avengers, I really like the Avengers, especially after reading a lot of these '60s comics. Because before the movies, I didn't care for any of them except the Incredible Hulk. I've always liked the Hulk, but anyone else I was like, Ant-Man, who's that? Thor, fuck him. Iron Man, just a guy in a suit. Now I'm like, yeah, they're all great. I love them. Captain America. I used to think of Captain America as a Boy Scout kind of, but now I see he's not that. He still kind of is, but he's more like a Boy Scout to his own morals. He's like always true to his own morals and fuck everyone else. And I like that because his morals are always right. And that's I mean, rare. When is Eddie Wood's morals always right? Always in the right. He always does the right thing, even when he's doing the wrong thing. Oh, I also after reading these, that's the other thing. I started really liking the Submariner, or Namor the Submariner, however you want to say his name. Namor. Just call him Namor. I doubt he'll ever be in the movies. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's already in that new Spider-Man one. I haven't seen that one yet. That'd be cool. But like, I really started liking him. He's kind of like an evil Aquaman, or like because he only cares about Atlantis, you know. Unlike Aquaman, who cares about the surface world as well. You know, he's more like, and if his needs for Atlantis line up with the surface world, then they can work together. But otherwise, he's just like screw the surface world. Um, so he's kind of an anti-hero, but not in the same way most anti-heroes are, because he is a hero in his own realm, you know. Anyway, was that it? Maybe that's it. I don't like the Silver Surfer. He's okay. Just the first run of Silver Surfer, I just found like really, really over the top with its like melodrama kind of. Yeah, I'd call it that. It is a melodrama, is what I'd call it. It's a lot more soap opera than other stuff, and it doesn't help because like Silver Surfer has so much power and stuff. It's like, why is he like such a whiny weirdo? Whatever. Nick Fury of Agents Shield. The first one came out in 1968. I'd recommend that actually, as long as you can get over that it's 60s. That 60s kind of like later 60s is a lot better than the early 60s, but it still has its own style. I'd actually just say like skip to the 70s maybe. Start with Luke Cage, which I think is the top of this list on the part 2. I mean, Luke Cage is really good. Oh my god, I love it. But actually, like even that, I'd probably be like, if you've seen the Netflix show, you probably don't need to read the original Luke Cage stuff because they do it. It's like the same stuff on the Netflix show, but they do it better on the Netflix show. It's very similar. It's not exactly the same. Still just skimming through. This is so many 60s. Oh, that gets to the 70s. 70s on this list? I think they updated this since last time. X-Men The Hidden Years. I'd say read X-Men First Class over that. I didn't really like The Hidden Years that much. They were okay. It had some good stuff, but it was like, eh. Okay, yeah, I guess that's it. I thought they had Emma Frost on here. Maybe that's the part of the next one. Actually, I'll do the first part because I just got the Man Thing, actually. So I'll do the next part. Oh, whoops! Oh no! Oh, I screwed it up. Oh no! Went to the wrong thing. So if you're still following along with me or whatever, just go to part 2. As soon as I get there. As soon as the website can be reached. Master Read Order, part 2. So I just want to like talk. Yeah, Luke Cage Hero for Hire is, like I said, top of the list. 1972. It's really good. I like it a lot. It's like, it came out during the blaxploitation era of cinema, and that was really popular, and so they made they made Luke Cage. And if you haven't seen blaxploitation, you might not get it so much, but I don't know, if you've seen the show, I think you would enjoy this, even though it is kind of, the show's very similar, at least with these original storylines. It's pretty, I like it a lot. I like Luke Cage a lot. Marvel premiere, I don't remember what that was. But then, Emma Frost. Yeah. Oh, it must have started. Oh, it must have started because this is number 7 to 18. I must have just not seen it. Emma Frost is really good. I don't remember when it came out. It was maybe 2000s, maybe the 90s, but it's really good. It's all about Emma Frost, a character I didn't know anything about actually. I think she might have been the Hellfire Club in the X-Men, in the original X-Men 90s comic. Not comic, the 90s show, I think. I think she was in the Hellfire Club in that old cartoon. But outside of that, I like didn't know anything about her, but like I don't know. This made her like really good. It starts with her like just discovering her powers while she's in high school, and she's like a psychic, so she's getting all this massive influence, and then she goes to college and meets this person. I I don't want to spoil anything, actually. Yeah, I won't spoil anything. It's really good. Go find it, read it. It's 18 issues. It might be, if you get it in graphic novels, I think it's like 3 graphic novels, but it's really good and you should read it. If you like, especially if you like mutants at all, or the X-Men at all. Because like I said, I didn't know anything about Emma Frost before I read this comic, but now she's one of my favorite characters. Top 3 X-Men, maybe. I don't know. I really like her after this comic. I'd have to read more before I decide that. I didn't like the... Okay. I think I read up to the Avengers Defenders War. Yeah, there's a lot of 70s comics here. I recommend most of them, because the 70s gets a lot better. There's less convoluted bullshit in every panel. It's still some, but it's like so much better. It's like more like, it feels more like watching like a TV show with each one, and just in how the plots and everything, just how everything flows, I guess. Just the pacing and everything. It's a lot better than the 60s comics. I'd still recommend some of the 60s comics, but even then I'd say like there's an updated version of the 60s comics you could read instead, like I mentioned. I read up to the Avengers Defend. Well, I read up to Man-Thing #1. Oh, that's just under there. Okay, yeah. Luke Cage, really good. Avengers, always good. But then Avengers Defenders War comes along, and it's like one of the first crossover events they ever did. It might be the first, but I think there might be one that's just not on this list. It's the first one on this list, anyway. And it's pretty good. It has some good parts and stuff, but it's definitely very showcasey, or whatever you'd call it. It's definitely like very gimmicky. Yeah, because there's like each issue has at least one hero from the Defenders. It's not the Defenders from Netflix too. The Defenders in this one are like the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Swordsman, a couple other people I forget, but or maybe Swordsman's on the Avengers, I forget. Just like a ragtag bunch. But they fight. Oh, and each one, it's always like it'll always announce it like in Chapter 6, Doctor Strange versus the Hulk or something like that, or not those two because they are both on the Defenders. But it'd be like Iron Man versus Doctor Strange. It's just like, okay, one of them wins, and then we move on. And that's all like a plot from Loki and Dormammu working together. Because I guess Dormammu is like the big bad of the Defenders at this point, because Doctor Strange is on it, and Loki's the big bad of the Avengers because Thor's on it. I don't know. It was okay. It was just really gimmicky. That's what I would say about it. Yeah, and then after that, there's a few more comics, but I'll just save it and read Man-Thing. But I'll go back to just reviewing things one comic at a time, like a crazy person. That's just really easy. All right, that's it.